burning desire, big ideas, bold action. Welcome to the next installment of A Thriving Life. My name is Doug Fisher.
And I'm Michael Sean Conaway. In A Thriving Life, we're looking at the fundamental elements of life that contribute to thriving. What is it that has us be fulfilled and happy, and being able to relate to our life as a creation of our own design, as something that gives us joy. Now, that's an aspiration for all of us, but how do we actually get there? What do we actually have to do to achieve that? Well, we've broken it down into 12 elements that we're going to go through week by week. This is week number 3, and we're going to support you in looking at those elements of your life, those foundational elements, and helping you make progress, up-leveling those parts of your life. First of all, if you haven't already done it, be sure and download our app at bold.ly/YOU. It's an app that works on desktop, iOS, and Android. On that link, you'll find the ability to open up either one of those 3. Go on there and take the life's work and career assessment. That way, you know where you are on your journey towards a fulfilling career and a life's work that really has you be your best self and give the most contribution to the world and make the most impact that you can, and thereby help you to thrive in this area. This week, we are working, as I said, on life's work and career. And, most of our life is spent working for someone or something, or maybe working for ourselves in a startup or our own business. We spend so much of the hours of our day doing our work that in order for us to thrive, it's clear we're going to have to thrive in our work. And we're going to talk today about our work, our career, and something very, very aspirational called your life's work.
And by the way, that's a thing that a lot of us grapple with. Like many of us from time to time, if not a lot, really think, okay, am I in the right job? Am I doing the right thing? We may tend to trade our life for money and then really not feel fulfilled. And so it's a really critical area. And so that's what we'll be exploring this week. And a couple things to get the most value out of today is, one is really look to discover something new for yourself that you can take action on. That's something on Boldly Now we stress all the time, and take action on whatever new discovery you have. And if there's anything that you want to comment on, another way to get value is actually to write in the comments any new discoveries you have, any new insights you have, any new learning you have. You can write that in the comments or ask questions there, and we will be tracking that and can respond. So, Michael Sean, why don't you introduce our guest today?
I am so excited to introduce my dear friend, Jen Longenyan. She is a member of the Generative Futures Initiative, an executive mentor in the entrepreneurship program at Loyola Marymount University, and a founder of her own firm, C and Free Consulting. Jen is a former COO of Dollar Shave Club, but more importantly, she's a woman with a purpose and a lot of passion and an indomitable will. Welcome to the show, Jen Longenyan.
Thanks, Michael Sean. Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome. Great to have you, Jen. And let's just start out with, because people's work and career are really, really important to them. A significant portion of our lives occupies a lot of our attention. And when you look at it, when you think of work and career, and also as part of a thriving life, what is it you first think of? What do you think are some of the key elements of having career contribute to a thriving life?
Well, I will tell you that having started my early career in career coaching and then spending a lot of time thinking about, organizations and people and where they want to go and grow in their lives, I always tell them, start with your life. What kind of life do you want? That's when you talk about your career and go one step further, your life's work, you want to start with the life that you want. And people don't always do that for themselves. A lot of times they try to confine their thinking to, I need to do this next with my job. I need this new title. I need this level of salary. And I'm thinking, well, but towards what end? Like, what is that going to do for you? So what does a fulfilled life look like? And I spend a lot of time talking to people about that. I'm like, tell me what, where you want to be, who you want to be with, what you want to be doing when you're completely fulfilled. And whatever those dreams are, that's what we build backwards from. We're like, let's talk about that first. And then we'll talk about the kinds of opportunities that you want to take with your career to achieve that.
That's great. Let me just ask this, Jen, because is that a difficult question for people to answer, what they want their life to look like?
I might seem like I've been super, deliberate in all of my career steps, but I couldn't answer that question for myself for a long time. And so that kind of, what do you want? Some of us just kind of, react with a kind of a visceral reaction of rejection. Like, I can't answer that. Don't push me to answer that. So I tell people, I said, that's okay. What you want to do in those situations is rule out the things you don't want. It's okay to meander through some opportunities and experiment and play with different things to figure out exactly what you do want. And you don't necessarily have to know that at the outset. You can figure it out. Many of us learn through doing. And I tell people, I'm like, go do it. Give it a shot. If it's 2 weeks and you're miserable, then you've learned something and you've taken something away.
Yeah, I love that idea of getting out and experimenting and experiencing. I think many of us, though, feel like we're kind of at the affect of our job. Like, I got a job, aren't I lucky? Or, like, I'm in this department, therefore I can only look for jobs in that department or that role. Or and the same thing's true for entrepreneurs. I meet so many entrepreneurs that just start another business when they fail with one because that's the only thing they think that they can do. I'm not employable, or I couldn't work in an environment in that. And I love the idea that we could just experiment. And like, tell me a little bit. I mean, I love the thing, by the way, about imagining a future. Obviously, that's a generative future things that we talk about at Boldly Now an awful lot, imagining a future that's desirable. And then for us, we always one that's purposeful as well. But how do I deal with the two poles? Like, I'm stuck in this job or this career, or I can only have like certain steps I can take, and I'm imagining or dreaming of something, and maybe I'm in marketing, but I really want to be a novelist. I mean, how do those things add up, especially in today's marketplace?
Yes. Well, today's marketplace, I think, is an interesting one, right? There's a circumstance we're all facing right now, and I think the first thing I'd say about that, and I've said this to a lot of people about 2020 in general, and they're like, well, what do I do? Do I write somebody on LinkedIn and tell them I'm interested? Or do I tell my manager I want to try something over in the tech department? And I say to them, listen, if there's one thing we learned this past year, we could be a victim to kind of our shared circumstance, or we could look at it as there's no playbook here. Nobody left us. Our grandparents did not leave us with the playbook for a pandemic and how to have a meaningful career. We just didn't. So that means you have to kind of start to push yourself a little bit out of that comfort zone. Nobody's holding you to convention right now. And some of us feel that paralyzed by that, fear, like, whoa, we don't know the rules anymore. We don't know what we have to do. What's that next thing? But that's okay. What if you take that as an opportunity and you ask, just ask for opportunities. Can I play in that area and see, can I give it a shot? Because yes, there is the pragmatism of needing work and financially for many of us needing work. And I think we need to own that. But you can be pragmatic about what your job gives you, and that's where you want to be pragmatic. But you don't necessarily have to play it safe with the job or the career path. I think, I would encourage people to start thinking a little bit out of the box and giving things a chance, because I do see, when people ask or they put themselves out there, more often than not, they do well, or they discover something new about themselves. And I know it's scary, but I tell people, I'm like, nobody tells you your resume's got to be written a certain way now. Nope. Cover letters. You don't have to follow those conventions anymore. And so let's come up with some new things,
Yeah. And Jen, that I love what you're saying, because it harkens back to what you said about like, try, do something and see what happens and try it out. And I know from talking with a lot of people, there's that sort of getting over the hump, like considering, okay, I'm someone who can actually take that risk and be okay. And I imagine with a number of people you've dealt with, you've seen people take that step. Anything you see like really helps people take that step to consider and then take action inside of, I can have a turnout.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things I tell them. one is, again, imagination can do wonders, right? And it's all about your mindset. But think about your life. If you did take that step, what's the absolute worst thing that's going to happen? And oftentimes when I take people down that path with me and I'm like, okay, what's gonna get a divorce out of this? What are you going to be? You're going to be on the streets? What's going to happen? And oftentimes they're like, no, I'll just be, put out for this amount of time, or I will have made this expense, or maybe I won't, be able to go out as much as I like because I'm going to cut back on my budget. I'm like, okay, so how bad is that? So sometimes we just don't let ourselves go to like what pain could be, because our fear can take us down some really scary places, and we don't let ourselves kind of generate possibility in that. And I tell people, I said, that's what you want to do. Just go there, go to your biggest fear. Let's go together. And if you can live with that, then take this step. It's worth it, And I'll tell you a piece of advice that somebody gave me, because I've had many of these moments where I'm like, I call it shoulding on myself. I should do this. I should do that. I have to do this. And I do that to myself quite a bit. And I was having a rough time at a job, and just kind of more days that I didn't enjoy myself than did. And I was driving my brother's car down a freeway, and I think I was in Seattle. And those medians along the freeway, and there was a big sign there said road closed. They didn't want people to go into the carpool lane, and some bus hit it. So this gigantic sign says road closed, starts swirling towards my car, and it ends up, and I think this is it, I'm going to be decapitated and I'm done. But instead it just slices off his mirror, and I go home, and I'm like, bro, your car, we got to go take it into the shop. The mirror's gone. Here's what happened. And that really started to get to me, because I took it as a sign, a literal sign. I'm like, this is telling me something. And somebody said to me, yeah, Jen, when you hit a road closed sign, you're driving along, you hit a road closed sign, what do you do? And do you just stop your car, you get out, you lay on the ground, and you give up? And I was like, no, I turn around and I take a detour, I do something else. And she was right. I was like, that was the sign. The sign was like, if you're unhappy most of the time, and you want to do something different, don't look at your life as like a road closed sign. When you hit a road closed sign, it's time to take a detour. So imagine what that could be, and go there. And that was some of the best advice I could have gotten early in my career.
Yeah, I love that. I love that metaphor. And I know, having known you for many years now, I won't say how long because it'll date both of us, but, you've had a long career, both corporate, entrepreneurial, now as a teacher for young entrepreneurs and consultant. I want to talk a little bit about purpose, because you and I did a program many years ago where we worked on purpose. Really, it's the first time that I did a lot of deep purpose work. And I just would love for you to share personally, what has your journey been with like that? Like discovering and articulating purpose, and then moving forward today where you actually have a consulting company that's named after your articulation of your purpose. So let's start off with, would you just share your purpose with us and then take us through that journey a little bit?
Yeah. So my purpose is to see and free the best in others. And Michael Sean was part of helping me discover that. And I'm very thankful. And we've stayed close friends as a result. The journey was painful to get to that. Why? It seems like a really altruistic, good purpose to have. And the truth was, I've always been somebody that liked people. I'm super intrigued by people's stories. I walk into a room or a new job, and I'm always like, ooh, there's so much potential here. That's just me. It's my nature. I get very excited about like what I see as possibility in people and teams and organizations. And so I was seeing all this magic happen in my career. But what I was struggling with was seeing it in myself. I was really good at it when people would come to me, in a coaching relationship and say, I need help. What do you see? And I would say, oh my gosh, I see so many amazing things for you. And you add so much value. And I would pump them up and I'd get them ready to go. And I'd be their biggest champion. But when it came to putting myself out there, and seeing myself as this value add in the world, I really struggled to the point where in my doctoral program, I was like, I don't want to publish. I have nothing important to say, or I don't want to, be out front. I don't want to lead a team. I was a consultant for most of my career. Consultants by nature are on the periphery. We are there in the background. I call it the wizard behind the curtain. I was always just like, say this, do this. You'll look better if you do this. And I was good at that. I was super good at that. I was always good at helping other people kind of manifest their dreams and see what was possible. But when it came to one, me being clear what it meant for me, but two, being comfortable with that and putting myself out there, like literally putting myself out there, it was hard. And I'd been successful. My career had been moving along, and I was very self-assured that I was good at my job. I knew that. I was good at that was never an issue. I know I'm good at my job. But did I believe I had good to offer? And could I actually be out front and shepherd this kind of movement of seeing and freeing the best in others? I wasn't always there. It took me years to figure it out. And when I figured it out, it was like a light bulb went off. All of a sudden I was like, I'm going to own that. Like, I am good at seeing and freeing the best in others, but it only comes with the investment in myself. I've got to see that as a gift. I've got to own that. I've got to know, like, that's what I'm here to do in the world. I want to do that. That's what it comes naturally. And when I started to do that, my whole practice, the whole way I approached my job was completely different. And I enjoyed it a lot more, and I was confident, and I kept putting myself in uncomfortable positions, where I would be out front and people would visibly see me for what I was contributing and appreciating it. And I had to learn to take appreciation. I was really poor at that. I was so good at criticism and feedback. I was like, oh, give me more. Yes, I can take it. But when people would say something nice or appreciative, I would just shriek. Like I literally just feel very uncomfortable. Actually, Michael Sean and I, we had an exercise once where he helped me kind of get to a phrase that I tell myself in those moments, those like fearful moments. And I say, I'm okay. Like, that's all I say to myself. I'm okay. and when I do that, it just resets me. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm okay. And then I can go forward, and I can push myself into another, uncomfortable place. But that's the only way I learn and grow. And I encourage people, to own your purpose first, recognize it. When you find it, don't let go of it. Own it, appreciate it, value it, know it's who you are, and then go do something with it if you can, because who wants to spend their day doing stuff that isn't purpose related? It's not fun. But we all have those moments, but it's a little bit energy sucking.
It's great. It's great, Jen, because I hear like a shift that I know I've experienced for myself and seen a lot of other people, where a sort of trying to make it to where there's for me all the kind of doubts, like I'm not measuring up, it's et cetera, to once having landed on my purpose, it's more like an expressing the purpose into my work, into the job, into the thing. And then, yeah, there are times that are scary, but there's a different, it's in a way, it's no longer about me when I've got the purpose clear.
Yes, that's right. It's not a narcissistic exercise at that point. It might seem like it, but it's actually not. I mean, yes, it's fulfilling to me to live in my purpose, and seeing and freeing the best in others. I do it anyway, so why not own it to the point where I did, name my business after it. But you're right, Doug, because it does allow you to be in service of other people, and for me, that's all I want to do. That's all I love doing, and so for me, it's been really, really good.
Yeah. And one other note, because just in terms of like our own gifts, you might say, our own places we're competent in the Do What You Love, Change the World program, we actually have people interview people in their lives and ask them, what are my gifts? And typically when people do that, they're really surprised and sometimes have a hard time accepting the compliment, like you talked about.
I do. I see that too with people I coach. They're like, my mom said this, and my sister said that, and my girlfriend said that, and I can't believe all this stuff. And I'm like, isn't that amazing? These are the people closest to you. And just listen to what they're saying. Let's figure out how to, make that happen every day, because everyone should know you that way. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're able to express that, then that's how you show up. You show up as purpose. Let's kind of unpack this a little bit, because before any like the name of this week's topic is life's work and career. I'm going to just try again to look at that. This career is this thing that we kind of see as a path. And if we're lucky, it's a path that goes up and up and up, right? I get a good role, then I get a better role, then I become a people manager. I've got a small team, then I get a bigger team. And then maybe I end up like you did, Jen, in a C-suite at some point. Although I'm sure that's its own kettle of fish, as they say. I think or maybe I'm an entrepreneur and I build a company and I go IPO or whatever those things. And I know you've experienced both of those paths. Is that kind of an artificial measure of what maybe could be called a life's work? Or is it an accurate measure? Or maybe is there something else we should be attending to? If we want to have something called a life's work, which I would say is something that's based upon your purpose, that's contributing the most you can contribute, making the most positive impact on people in the world, and then it having a quality of being fulfilling. My life's work fulfills me, or I fulfill my life's work might be a better way to say it. What is it about that emergent from where you stand, having had both a career and now a life's work?
I will tell you that, I do agree with you. A career, I think, is a path. A life's work is a destination, is how I put it. And so, sometimes the way you measure that career, what you thought would be the big milestones of your career are going to be completely different when you compare it on the path of your life's work. And what I mean by that is, if I had just measured my career in salary, right? Like I just made more money as a result. People paid me more for what I contributed. I could do that. I could say, oh, that's good. I've mostly an upward trajectory. Or I've done more and more scope in my roles. Like you said, I started out here and I ended up in I guess, more, visible roles in organizations where I could have a larger influence and impact. That's another way. But when you compare it to your life's work, you look at every single milestone in your career, even in your day, differently. And I'll give you an example. For me, I could say, oh, I built this great leadership program and hundreds of people went through it and we got X scores as a result. People felt better, right? They felt really good about themselves. And that could be a measurement of a career milestone for me. But the truth is, when I look back on my career, on the things that actually most mean something to me, is that one student who came in for an informational interview because they wanted to know if they, wanted to pursue this career path. And I said, well, here you go. Come work for me. Let's go do this, just so you can figure that out. And then later in life, they call me up and say, thank you so much for opening that door. That's a see and free moment for me. Those are the things that stand out for me. They are, for when I look back on like the things that matter to me, those things matter. I used to do training a lot as part of my job in certifications, and a guy just recently reached out to me. He's in India, and we met years and years ago in London when I was there. And he has taken a snapshot of the facilitation evaluation. And I had written like, you are an amazing facilitator, and I'd love to see what you do. And I'd written this nice note, and he sent it back to me. And he goes, I look at this on my bad days. It reminds me that you saw something in me. That is what matters. So when I look back at my career, those are the things that are going to matter. The big stuff, the things that people, give me credit for, maybe not. But for me, the measurement will be, did I actually see and free the best in others? Like, what does that look like? And sometimes those are not the things you expect. And I think, I encourage people to try to appreciate those moments, because we skim over them sometimes. We don't give ourselves enough, not credit for it, but more just like, appreciation, recognition that, you're still on that path, and that path is much bigger than what you think.
And that leads me to just ask, you're working with some young entrepreneurs at Loyola Marymount. And obviously at, 19, 20, 21, we don't have much of an idea of our career or of our life's work. But what do you see for them? How do you actually begin to think and to talk to young people about, hey, maybe this like normal path may not be the way to actually build your life's work, or maybe it's not what it seems. What, like, I just tell me, take us inside that room a little bit, and talk to us, because we were all that age once, going, oh my goodness, I have no idea what I'm going to do, or if I'm going to be able to do anything that's successful. How do we get them going in the right direction? And I want to say that, especially in light of the world they're entering into, pandemic aside, climate change and really huge social injustice issues and systemic fragility that we know has caused such a huge amount of disruption in the past couple of years. Like, how do we get them going in the life's work direction?
Yeah. I do think, it's a very, like we all know, unique time. And then you're right, there is that phase of life we all have to go through. So they're going through that phase, that phase, the one we all remember, questioning yourself and everything around you. They're going through that at the time when the entire world's questioning ourselves. And what a tough challenge they have in front of them. And so as they're thinking about, what's going to be next for me, it is hard for them to see really far into the future, to think about a life fulfilled, because they're, so many of them are locked in their homes. We're doing virtual school like everyone else. All their classes are from their room with their roommates. And it's hard, I think, for them to envision a world where they're able to do something that's super meaningful for them out in the world, that they could see going places, that would contribute to kind of what a fulfilled life would look like. I think what I tell them is, again, when you don't know what you want, sometimes it's good just to try, and not to get terribly discouraged by trying. That's number one. I think the second thing is, these kids have brilliant ideas. Like, some of them are crazy ideas. And by virtue of being entrepreneurs, the stretch in their minds, right, is pretty incredible. And they have some cool things they want to do, but the timing's not right. Because the world, some of the stuff they want to invent, I'm like, but who's going to use that right now? And so I tell them, I said, but don't take a not right now as a no. A not right now is that's okay, because if you start now, by the time that you've got this thing, stitched together and moving in the direction you want, you'll be on a pathway to minimally experimentation, learning more about yourself along the way, and never to take themselves out of the context of what they want to pursue. Because I see a lot of them coming up with ideas that they don't care about. They think they'll be profitable. They think that, they'll think they'll get a lot of attention and PR, and like, but you don't care about it. And I think you said that, Michael Sean, when you fail and you just move to the next thing. And I'm like, but what do you care about? What's that thing that you can do every day that energizes you? And that's another thing I talk to them about, is like, think about where your energy goes, what excites you, what doesn't, and then go find people around you that like the stuff that you don't. And they'll help you get this venture off the ground, because that's the other thing, is hard to see themselves as part of community right now. Many are feeling isolated, but I'm like, there's people out there who are looking for their way to bring their purpose into the world. And you need to find them, just find them, and take the journey together. So I think many of them, it's hard to see too far out, but what I'm trying to do is let them know, like, when you don't have, is that playbook idea again, when the rules are thrown out, now is the time to create new rules. This is your chance, and you are of a generation going through a very unique time and experience. What do you think is the way? The how? Because we all scripted the hows, these other generations. We scripted your hows for you, and those aren't working anymore. So you got to come up with some of your own, and they are. And I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, great. And I love this idea of giving them some agency, right? Like, it's not like, hey, here's your, go to the job fair, try to get on with a consulting company, or try to more like, invent this for yourself. And maybe that's the lesson that, we should all be doing that right now. The playbook's been tossed out. We could work really, really hard to restore a playbook that is unsatisfying to ourselves and unfulfilling in our lives, and then foist that off onto other people saying, hey, look, this is the way to go. When we know, especially for our work at Boldly Now, dealing with some very, very successful entrepreneurs and business people that say when they finally reached that financial goal, when they finally did that IPO, that often that was when they felt the lowest in their life, when things came crumbling down, and they really, once they took away that, hey, if I'll get here, I'll be happy, and suddenly they got there and they were less than happy, that they had to then, at a very late stage, of successful and late stage, start to figure out why they're here. Seems like if we could take two things from what you've said thus far away, if I can imagine a future that I want, imagine it really, really well, including me, not just what the thing is I'm going to be doing. Imagine I think you said who I'm going to do it with. And then I can get that my access to that is to just start inventing it, just start making it up and trying it. I think we would be in a much better place. And especially those of us who are in a later stage of our life's work journey, our career, to be able to look back down and say, hey, young person, go experiment, versus, hey, here's the way you can build your career. I think that's a sea change. That marks a really, really different point in our history. If especially those who are mentoring and leading can begin to build that capacity, because we're going to need innovators, and we're going to need to be having people that are willing to experiment, do prototyping, fail, experiment again, and do things around the things that they most care about in order to solve some of the biggest problems that we're facing on the planet right now. So first of all, thank you. And then for our listeners and viewers, doesn't matter how old you are, where you are on your journey, that maybe this is a really good moment to stop and reflect. I'm in the middle of this year that's crazy. And now we can talk about what hasn't worked this year, but broaden that out. What hasn't worked for you in your life that you now have a chance to reinvent? You have an opportunity to jump into saying something new, imagining something new, and taking incredibly different actions. So I'm very inspired by that, Jen. As we kind of think about, though, in general, people, and in general, the work that human beings do, talk to us a little bit about, how we might be able to evolve ourselves in our relationship to our life's work as a culture, as a society.
As a society, wow. I mean, I think the first thing that I think we need to do is take a pause. It is exactly what you were just saying, which is we're being forced to take a pause in many ways, trying to, and I'm seeing this with a lot of people I'm working with right now, burnout, exhaustion, depression, doubt, those things are settling in because people are trying to push through. They're just, if I just keep going, I'll make it, I'll get through this. And I'm like, but maybe the reason everything's happening for us right now is this is the moment to pause and really give yourself a chance, like you said, to reflect on, what works for me? What do I need in my life? What just became most important to me? Because we are all having those moments too, right? When you're faced with especially a pandemic, with your health is staring you in your face every day, you really get clear, what really matters. And I think some of us just aren't allowing ourselves that pause. And I think that needs to happen. And I think culturally we need to allow it to happen, to pretend that everything just needs to keep going. I had a talk with somebody the other day, and they said, everyone's as a CEO of a very successful company, who said, well, don't you think people are complaining of burnout and fatigue and stuff. Don't you think we need to treat it as this, getting off a long haul flight, and they just need to shower up and get out there and take a run and keep going. I'm like, sure, that might work for some, but it won't work for all. Some people need a nap, and I think that's the other thing, is we need to give people choice. Everyone needs to probably take that moment and figure out what's right for them. What's the right experience that they want, the right kind of place they want to be in, physically, mentally, emotionally. But they need to take that pause first. And to not pause, I think, does us a bit of a disservice. So I think that's number one. Society, I think, also it would be great if society could shift from career to life's work in general, because we don't talk about that. I mean, jobs are a whole nother thing. I tell people, I'm like, and roles are a whole nother thing. There's a hierarchy here. And when people always want to talk to me about their roles. Well, what role do you think I should take next? And I was like, does senior analyst sound exciting? Because that's not what you're aspiring to, senior analyst. That's not, that's just a thing that you call yourself while you're doing this type of work. So what's that work? What's that work contribute to? But we don't look at that way. So I think if society really wants to change this conversation, we have to change the conversation. And people need to start thinking beyond, the next role, the next job, because sometimes that doesn't even lead them down the career path. And I see people doing that right now. I have somebody that I'm working with who inherently is super passionate about music, loves music, lives music. That's how, everything about this person is about finding music in their life, but is willing to take a sales job, for a company they don't care about just to make ends meet. And I'm like, okay, but what if you could take a sales job in the music industry, and we find some way to bring things you care about into play here, because there's always the need in a job. We may need a job, but it doesn't necessarily get us towards that life's work, and I think that's the thing, is people need to start evaluating things differently. And we need to try to figure out how to do that.
I want to just take a moment and reflect here a bit that a lot of things we've been talking about today are things that are part of the default world that we're born into. We're born into a world that has a bunch of definitions about what we're going to do with our life. We're going to go to school for a period of time, and then we're going to enter into the workplace, and then we're going to do a job, and then we're going to become successful or not. And there's a lot that's already existing there. It's a world that we step into. And, right off the bat, I think most of us have an experience of navigating that world. How do I succeed in that world? How do I do well? What are the behaviors I get rewarded for? What are the ones I don't? And what you just said about a pause and starting to look inside about, hey, what are my gifts? What are my passions? What gives me a lot of energy? I remember you said that about the kids. Like, what do you get excited about? What are you passionate about? These are not about the world in which I'm going to get ready to go work in. These are about inside here. This is about you and being able to take some time over time. This is not a weekend workshop type thing. Take some time over time to figure out what's fulfilling, what's passionate. How do I make the biggest contribution? What's the biggest impact I make? And then what we're talking about here today is then how do those of us who have navigated that, we may have purpose in our life, we're doing life's work versus just a career, how do we then reflect back on the whole world so that the next generation maybe gets born into a different world? And that's something, that world-changing or world-bridging work is something I think that those of us who have been successful, or those of us who are looking to leave a legacy, that we need to spend our time on. Just like maybe when we were younger, we looked inside to figure out what was our passion, our purpose. We now need to look back and say, what is the kind of world that our young people are going to come into that would have them automatically, naturally, and normally do the things that I had to fight to learn to do? What if the things I had to fight to do were the new normal, the new basis, that fulfillment and happiness, and that making a contribution, that knowing I'm valuable and knowing why and how I'm valuable and what my gifts are, that these things become the new foundation. So I would, encourage our viewers and listeners who are in any kind of position to influence that or mentor the next generation, that we really can make a massive difference in the world of work, because as Doug said at the beginning of the show, it's something we spend so much of our life doing. If we can make the context of working one that switches from my job and my career to my purpose, my passion, and my life's work, then we're gonna leave the world a much better place than we found it today.
I agree with you. And I think, sometimes, and I was one of those people, maybe you both were as well, that didn't want to listen to my elders when I was younger and in looking at the world. And they tried to tell this to me, right? These messages were there, and I was just like, no, I just got to go get that job. Sometimes we don't want to hear it, but I would recommend for those of us who have gotten to that self-awareness and have started to see, that it matters that we're making the world a better place for people, and that what we're doing in the world is positive. It's making a positive impact, not just on us, but on others. Once you get to that point, the other thing I think you have to do for the ones younger, and I've got a teenager who I'm trying to reach right now, is sit without judgment and just listen. Because, that's one thing we can do for this generation while they're trying to figure it out, because it's so easy for when you get to that point of purpose, you just want to evangelize and you want to be dogmatic about it. And you want to be like, get to your life's work. Don't just take a job. But some people aren't ready to listen. It's readiness, and I try to do as much listening as I can and try to suspend my judgment. I fail sometimes, but I try to just step back and go, okay, what's the context they're in? And, what's the little nugget or lesson I could leave here that might help them just open their eyes just a little bit wider right now without taking the hard road that many of us chose to take. I think we owe that to these generations, that are growing up now and needing our guidance, but in a different way. Not in I sit down and I told you what you need to do with your life. It's tell me what you want to do with your life. Listen and then help them find those things.
And I think that's also appropriate regardless of any age or any tenure in the workplace, because I think there's just a lot of people who are doing the job, and doing it well, great. But just asking the question, okay, what does that contribute to? What's important to you about this? Begins to alter their relationship to it in a way that does, I think, Michael Strong, provide that kind of legacy for the coming generations. And I know there's in my consulting, there's a woman who I've been coaching who I've given her the question for her to ask others, what's important to you about that? and she's had it from everyone, all levels of the organization up to the chairperson of the organization asking that question, right? About certain things. And it always, it always opens up a new conversation for people that really gets a step closer to purpose and really providing that for everyone.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right. And it makes you really pensive, right? You just sit back on it and go, well, maybe there isn't anything important about that, but it's good. It's just such a good question. I like that question. Yeah.
Great. If our viewers and listeners are wondering for themselves what's important about that, we're going to talk a little bit about our program, Do What You Love, Change the World, because it gives you a chance really to dive in and work on the purpose work if you're not at that stage. I also want to mention that we are working on a leadership program right now, one that Jen and I have actually been in process on for about a decade, have delivered it in a number of ways. We're going to put a link in the comments. If you're interested in doing leadership work and really tackling some of these issues for yourself and your organization, click on that link. It should be coming up in the comments here. It'll be bold.ly/own the future. That's just going to give you a little intake form with some questions we might have for you and where you are in your career and what you're actually interested in moving forward on. And we're interested in listening to you. If we feel that there's a real calling for that kind of leadership work, we'll bring the work that we've been doing with Fortune 500 companies for the past 15 years or so to you directly, to you and your work and your organization. One of the things that we have a large commitment to is that the kind of the pinnacle of work in helping leaders become better leaders and helping organizations become more effective at realizing the things they want to realize, what's important to them, is that we need to take that work out of the ivory towers and the biggest corporations in the world and make it available to everybody, including entrepreneurs, small business owners, et cetera, et cetera. So that's our commitment to you, and to take that kind of world-class material and bring it to anybody that's really, really hungry for it. So if this conversation's resonated for you, please click on that link and we'll learn from you and that'll help us to figure out how to best serve you guys. So, Jen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure our listeners and viewers have gotten a huge amount of value out of this conversation and lots of things to think about. I'm really, really excited to continue working together with you and continue this conversation. Jen has a podcast that's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. What's the name of that podcast going to be?
It'll be called, it's not out yet, but it will be soon. See and Free Studio. And it is just going to be telling stories of people kind of sharing those moments, the kind that Michael Sean and I had together up in the mountains years ago. Those moments where you discover your purpose, discover something, your edge, I think Disney's calling it your spark. There's lots of names for it, but it's you finding that thing within yourself that it drives you, it fuels you. It is what, takes you through your life, and it's unique to you. And we're going to just celebrate that. I've got some really cool guests, and I might even have one named Michael Sean.
Yeah, I'm ready to come. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to be in the hot seat. That's for sure. So we will, when that podcast launches, everybody, we'll put that podcast, the first episode, on our Facebook page. So be looking for that, or directions how to get to different outlets for it. We're really excited to share Jen's work with the world, and just want to say, Jen, I love the fact that here you are, you're in between large roles, and I know that you may be having another very big and important role coming up now, but even in your downtime, you're taking time to share with people and have an impact on their life, to see and free them. And I'm moved by that and touched by that, and really excited that we get to keep working together, at least for the next 100 years or so.
You do stuff you can't help doing. So thank you. Yes, it's been really, really good. And thanks for giving me the opportunity. I'm excited about what you guys are doing. And, I'd say we just got to get ready for the world to catch up and be able to think about their future and dream again. And we're going to be off to the races.
Thank you so much, Jen. And we look forward to having you on the show again sometime in the future.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Well, I so appreciated so much of what Jen said. And two things really ring for me in it. One was at the very beginning about, with your life's working career, start with, what do you want your life to look like? And for me, that's like the desire, that burning desire, our passion and our purpose, and expressing that into the world, rather than thinking there's some career outside of ourselves the way it should be. So that whole shift and having that energy of our passion in our career.
Yeah, instead of looking out into the world about what job is out there for me, or what's my thing to do out there, I look inside first to just see what would satisfy and fulfill me. It seems kind of obvious when you say it that way, but so many of us want to know how to make our work feel fulfilling or feel joyful, but we didn't actually figure out what's joyful and fulfilling for us ourselves first, or what gifts we have to contribute, or what impact we want to make. And so becoming aware of and conscious of who we are in regards to the work that we're here to do in the world, to the unique gifts that we have, to our purpose. Without that, it's really hard to just luck into a career that leaves us fulfilled and satisfied. You'd almost say it's kind of crazy to expect that to happen. So if you're finding yourself feeling unfulfilled, or wishing you had a different career, or maybe that you had some passion that's never been realized, the first place to work is on discovering those things for yourself, going inside and discovering them for yourself. So Jen gave us a great guide. And now I just want to say, not only did she talk about that and unveil those things for me, I want to say, having known her for over a decade now, she's a person that does this work for herself. She has done the work of discovering those things and then putting them out there and putting them out for other people. So I really appreciated that about what she brought to us today.
Now it's time for you. What actions can you take? Because again, as Jen echoed, and as we talk about all the time at Boldly Now, it's, what can you do? What can you play with? What can you experiment with? And so first thing, as Michael Sean pointed to a couple different times, you can take the assessment about life's work and career and get a gauge of where are you at about that. Another thing you do after the assessment is actually go through some of the learning modules about this episode, this installment of A Thriving Life. And that'll be on the Boldly You app. And then if you don't have a purpose statement, or the purpose statement you have isn't giving you the juice you'd like, Jen's purpose statement is wonderful: to see and free the best in people. If you don't have one, you can get to work and begin to actually articulate your purpose. And as we've talked about, that might take some time.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that we set up Boldly Now in the first place, is to give people like an idea of what they should be doing in the world to up their level of their life towards thriving, up level for a thriving future for humanity. And purpose work is one of the core things that we really think is important.
And to support you in that, we have the Pathway to Purpose Challenge, which is available to you if you become a member of the Boldly You app. So when you go on, you'll see there's an option for membership, and that will unlock the Pathway to Purpose Challenge. So that's something we strongly recommend to support you, because it will take time for you to develop your purpose.
And purpose is a foundation to creating your life's work. Another foundational element of that is understanding what your life's work to produce, a vision of your impact or the future you want to leave for the world, for your descendants and time, your legacy. You have to have a vision of where you're going to have a life's work actually play out. And we actually have a program for that as well, for both purpose and that vision, that destination. It's called Do What You Love, Change the World. And this is a structured program. It will take you about 10 to 11, 12 weeks to do all of the work in there. And that program will leave you with a very, very clear articulation of your purpose and a very, very clear articulation of your vision for the future, and get you into action around that, get you taking the first steps into producing that.
So we're going to take a minute and share with you how we work on clarifying your purpose in Do What You Love, Change the World. See, you wouldn't be here unless you are passionate about life and passionate about making an impact in the world. See, we all have desires, things we want to express into the world, things that really light us up, that when we're doing things, acting on those things are of our passion, we're just so full of life, full of light. And then there are our gifts, the things we're really good at. And in the program, we have you interview people in your life and ask them what they see as your gifts. Because often we're kind of like, can be judge ourselves or limit our view of ourselves. And then there are the areas we want to impact in the world. The things that when you come across, that you read about or you see in your life, it's like, man, I wish I could do something about that. And in the program, we look at, okay, what's the intersection of those three areas? And in that, your purpose begins to emerge. And we work with you over the first 3 weeks of the program to be able to articulate a purpose you can then move into action on powerfully in your life and into the world.
So to give you an example of how this might work for you, let's take a look at my personal purpose, which is to unleash the greatness of people to bring about a thriving future for humanity. How did I get to that? How did I figure that out? Well, let's take a look at the formula. Let's start with my passion. My passion is for learning experiences. I really get excited when people can learn something that reflects on their life or has them see something different about themselves or their family or their community. I love this notion of being able to learn and grow. And for me, I'm always wanting to learn something. I want to learn the piano. I want to learn another language. So I have this real passion for learning. That's unique. Not everybody else has that, but for me, I have this passion for learning. Now, when I did my gifts assessment and asked people what I was good at, a number of things came out, storytelling, creating media, et cetera, et cetera. But the one thing that kind of came up over and over again was that I was good at coaching, like really helping people see things, like just with my word and my actions with them. So coaching is a really big gift for me. And then what do I care about? What do I want to do more than anything else? Well, I want to support you in creating the impact that you want to create, because I believe that if we're all creating these big impacts by moving forward the things that we deeply care about, that's going to cause this event that's really important to me, which is a thriving future for humanity. I'm a parent. I think about my children and maybe my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and I want them to grow up in a world that is just and functions well, and that they don't suffer in the same ways that we suffer, that they can stand on our shoulders and have real thriving. I mean, really joy and purpose and fulfillment in their life. If I could create a world where that was normal, that would be great. And I can't do that on my own. So the way I know to do that is to grow your impact. If I can get you to make those impacts and do it times 1 million, 10 million, 100 million people, then we'll get there, and we'll get there in ways that I can't even imagine. So if you look at that, learning plus coaching plus growing impact, that equals unleashing for me. Unleashing you, unleashing you to learn, engaging with you to coach you so you can discover your own greatness, and then supporting you so you can get your greatness in action in the world. So my purpose is to unleash the greatness of you to bring about a thriving future for humanity. So right now, you're seeing me. I am in my purpose. I am doing my purpose work. And that's an incredible feeling. I mean, for me, it's really deeply moving.
So what's it like having articulated a purpose, actually being clear about your purpose? Well, first off, it's a little bit, you got a sense of that when Michael Schoen's talking, because I know, having known Michael Schoen a while, there's a different energy to it. There's a different life to him. There's a different effervescence to him when he's acting inside of his purpose. And that's part of it. There's this vibrancy to life. You know, I heard someone once say, the difference between white wine and champagne is the bubbles, right? And it's sort of like the operating from our purpose is the bubbles in life. It's the things that get us really energized and really fully into life. So that's one thing. It's just our experience of life is different. It's enhanced. It's effervescent when we're operating from our purpose. The other thing is when things aren't going well, it's a place we can come from and ground ourselves to come into life. You see, when you're clear about your purpose, you can bring that to any circumstance. So when things don't go well, you know, when all goes to hell in a handbasket, you know, it's like, okay, great. How do I express my purpose in these circumstances? And there's always a way. And it gives us a different relationship because often, you know, let's face it, circumstances happen to us and sometimes they're not great. And sometimes I know for me, it's like I'm the victim of those circumstances. But if I then tune into, okay, well, how can I bring my purpose to this circumstance? And I get into action inside of my purpose, my relationship to the whole circumstance changes. I'm no longer a victim. I'm expressing what's important to me into the current circumstances. And so life becomes more something of your design rather than trying to get something external to yourself that you need to be okay or to make it or to survive in some way. And so it's a real shift, really being clear about your purpose is a real shift in how you approach life, from trying to get something from life to expressing your purpose, to expressing what's important to you into life. And that's when it becomes really fun. You know, sorry, Michael Schoen, yes.
I just think that you know, like that's exactly it, is that it's not that you have a purpose. It's that you declare a purpose and then you live inside of it. You know, it's not like you could look inside of me and find my purpose. But inside of my experiences of life and inside of me discovering for myself what really works for me, I was able to articulate this purpose. And, you know, I first articulated a version of this purpose. It was much longer when Jen and I did purpose work back, 2010. And we're going from like knowing what purpose was to really seeking to articulate purpose. Like, how do you say it really clearly that it rings? And so over the past decade, I've been changing the articulation. I've been using different words and different combinations. But the thing that you said is that like we are inside of our purpose. We declare it. It's like building a house. You build a house and then you go live in it. We build a house called purpose. And then inside of that house, we have a completely different operating system, a different way of dealing with life than if we didn't have the purpose. And, but as you said, Doug, one of those pieces is that when we're confronted by challenging circumstances, when the roadmap of our life doesn't go as we think it should, we have something to hold on to anchor us or ground us. It's like, okay, all is going crazy, but I am at least going to be able to focus on this thing. And then likewise, when we're not just dealing with the current circumstances, but we're looking forward to where we're going to go, what we want to create in the world, we can use that like a lens. We can hold that purpose up and say, is this thing that I'm planning on going to fulfill my purpose? Because if it is, and I'm planning on living a life that's going to fulfill my purpose, I know that I'm pretty much guaranteed to have some fulfillment, some joy, and some satisfaction, no matter how well it goes, even if my plans are upset. And that can go from, projects you want to do, impacts you want to make in the world, to just like your job, just like everyday things. And even being able to say, hey, I'm thinking about a job, or maybe I have a job offer. How do I consider that? Well, if you've got this thing called a purpose, you can say, will it fulfill on my purpose? Will it fulfill on my purpose more than my current role? Wow, that starts to sound like a return on investment. Part of my compensation package is I want to be able to do work in my life that's purposeful. So when we start to talk about life's work, well, if you don't know your purpose, you don't have a life's work. You just have a series of jobs. You have a career roadmap.
Yeah, it reminds me of a quote from Howard Thurman, who said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And being clear about and acting from your purpose has you come alive. And that's, as Michael Sean talked about, what, his purpose, mine is actually people becoming aware of and acting on, fulfilling their soul's desire, their soul's purpose. So it's both of us are oriented around you coming alive, you living a thriving life.
Yeah, great. And it's Doug and I that are leading the Do What You Love, Change the World program. It's our faces you see day to day. There's lots of other special guests that come in and comment on the different topics and areas, experts in purpose, experts in future visioning and future searching, and then experts like Tom Chi coming in and talking about rapid prototyping. So we're the kind of core leaders of that program, but then there's all this extra faculty that comes in. And not only is there great content like that and the thoughts of some great thought leaders, we also have meditations and activations to kind of get you in the right mindset, the right mind frame to be able to do this deep inner work from a place that is that's deep and profound. We don't want shallow purpose work. We want deep, profound purpose work. And so, hey, look, this program's also, just want to let you know, been really, really successful. You can look on the DoWhatYouLoveChangeTheWorld.com page and look at some of the testimonials. And we're actually putting together a video testimonial page. Maybe we'll get some of those videos up there for you to watch. Not only do people end up with a purpose, but their life changes. I mean, their life changes like they're the author of their life. They are the ones that are saying how things are going to go. And then the fulfillment and the satisfaction and the happiness and the joy and all those things are byproducts, are natural byproducts of having done this work, of building the house of purpose. I like that. I like that metaphor.
Yeah, and just one thing for me is that, thank you so much for listening, because that allows Michael, Sean, and me to fulfill our purpose. So we really appreciate you listening.
That's right. Do What You Love, Change the World, in fact, is our purpose. It is our purpose in action. It's how we have work to find a way to unleash you or to find your soul's purpose and to get you into living a thriving life and to making a big impact in the world. Now that course is really easy to find out about. Go to dowhatyoulovechangetheworld.com. We'll drop the link down below in the comments. And in fact, right with that link, we're going to put a promo code in there that'll be good for a really big discount on that program. So go to dowhatyoulovechangetheworld. dowhatyoulovechangetheworld.com. Check out that website, and you can register right there. Now, the course is a study at your own pace course, so you can start anytime, take you 10 to 12 weeks. We're also going to be interacting with you. We have regular office hours that you can pop into, ask questions, get some help with something you maybe don't understand. And there's going to be a larger group and community of people doing the course with you. We've got people doing the course, starting the course every week of the year. So you'll find a group of people that you can do the course with and move through it. Now we'll find you some ways to get connected with them. And, the important thing is don't wait for thriving. Don't wait to have the life you love. Don't wait to make the impact you want to make. Don't wait to have the legacy and be the ancestor you want to create for yourself and the world. You have so many gifts to give. You're such a unique and special individual. We all have our part to play. And if we all raise our hands up and lift up the world together, just imagine what a place we could live in. If people lived from purpose and passion, if people felt healthy and strong and felt that they could express themselves fully in the world. DoWhatYouLoveChangeTheWorld.com to find out more about that program. Another thing I want to just mention, because we talked about it with Jen, is there is this leadership program, Own the Future, that we worked on and developed with Jen. If you're interested in that leadership program, it's going to be a very small group of people that do it, and some amazing coursework in there. Please fill out the interest form at bold.ly/own the future. We'll put that link in the links below. And, like we get to do this every week, get to show up with, Doug and I and Jen and all the people we're bringing on. We are actually getting to do what we love and change the world as well, support you in that. We want you to have the kind of joy and fulfillment that we're getting out of our work and our career for yourself. So we're very appreciative to have you today. Really appreciative of having Jen on the show and sharing her wisdom and helping us to see how we might thrive in life. And as we begin to thrive and look for ways to thrive, then we can start to solve the issue of a thriving future for humanity.
And just, I would add one thing is that as you're beginning, if you've been in the different episodes so far of A Thriving Life, you're probably getting the sense that expressing your passion and purpose into the world is what will generate a thriving life for yourself and also a thriving life for humanity. And that's what we're all about. That's what we love to see. So thank you so much for joining us, and join us next week.
The Boldly Now Show, igniting the world of burning desire, big ideas, and bold action. Be sure to download Boldly You in the App Store, Google Play, or online at bold.ly/YOU. Boldly You is an app and learning platform igniting your burning desire, big ideas, and bold action, generating a future for a thriving humanity. Boldly Now is an initiative of the Generative Futures Initiative, generating a thriving future for humanity. Learn more at generativefuturesinitiative.com.